Transport Workers Union is lobbying the government to increase support and rights for delivery drivers and gig economy workers. Joining me live out of Canberra now is Michael Kaine, the National Secretary of the Transport Workers Union. Michael, thanks for your time this morning. So you would have noticed this court case out of the UK where Uber drivers in Britain have been found to be entitled to benefits, I should say, like paid holidays and minimum wage, after a ruling by the Supreme Court. Do you think that that could inspire similar types of legal action here?
Good morning, Pete. Well, it should inspire similar types of action here. I mean, at the end of last year, in its 2-month period, we had 5 delivery riders lose their lives, Pete. These are workers, like so many workers in our economy, have showed themselves to be some of the heroes of the pandemic, delivering to businesses and families while we were in lockdown. And they are terribly exploited, as are ride-share drivers. And this is a decision of the Supreme Court in the UK, which is sending ripples around the world, because this court has essentially said to Uber, we can see through the fiction of your business structures, and they are having the effect of exploiting workers, and we're not going to have a bar of it. And that's critical because in Australia, we're being left behind. This is on the back of court cases that are finding workers to have rights in this gig economy right across Europe. We've got an old-fashioned definition in Australia. It needs to be reformed. And we're down in Canberra today and this week with workers calling on Christian Porter and the government to urgently act here to make sure that these Australian workers have rights like every other Australian worker does.
The problem, though, I suppose, for business is that if they have to pay out holidays and increase wages, fewer jobs will become available.
Well, I don't know that that necessarily follows. These companies are literally raking it in on the business model that they're making and spend hundreds of millions of dollars every day in economies around the world. The mythology that these companies push out is that you can't have a flexible work arrangement and provide workers with rights. But of course you can have both of those things. And we've shown that, actually, the Transport Workers Union and transport workers in Australia, over very many decades. We've had very flexible systems in place for independent contractor transport workers. And it just doesn't follow that you can't have both things. And the time's come when you've got riders who are literally losing their lives, when they're having unilateral pay cuts imposed upon them, when they can have their work terminated at the whim of an app with no recourse, as other workers have in our economy, to challenge unfair and arbitrary terminations. Now, this is not what families need in Australia, and it's not what people expect when they're jumping into a ride-share vehicle or they're ordering a meal. They certainly don't expect the person performing that work to be in mortal danger. The time's come for change, and it's time for Christian Porter to stand up here and make some change to our laws.
Well, just on this, on Qantas is taking some of its routes off Rex Airlines, and that's to the detriment of Rex. What sort of job losses could there be, as far as you're concerned, with respect to this particular story?
Well, you know, this is not a good look for Qantas. Qantas has received $800 million worth of taxpayer funds to support it throughout the pandemic. Rex has received tens of millions of dollars of funds, and now they're in a stoush with each other about regional routes, using that support to further their ambitions in competition. What really faces this industry, Pete, that we have to face up to is the 31st of March cliff. That is the JobKeeper cliff. This industry, of course, is the one that keeps tourism going. It's the one that's the gateway to the international community as the virus passes. It's the one for domestic economic activity that is critical, and it needs support past the 31st of March. That's why all airlines and companies have called for an aviation keeper to make sure that this industry is kicking, because if it's not kicking, the Australian economy is not kicking. And the last thing we need is for companies to be using the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that they've got to be having a competition war at this stage when workers don't even know if they're going to be able to feed their families after the 31st of March.
So what would Aviation Keeper, in your view, require? I mean, airports say, and travel agents too, have said that they want to have continued support for up to 2 or 3 years throughout the course of the pandemic. It's probably unlikely that they're going to get that, but what sort of figure do you have in mind?
Well, what needs to happen is that the subsidy, which is JobKeeper, needs to continue in aviation, because what will happen if that doesn't occur is that we will have highly skilled workers leak out of the industry. And then when the economy needs to come back online, as inoculations take effect, as international borders are open, this industry, which is the precursor to tourism, which is the precursor to our economic activity domestically and internationally, won't be ready to go, and that will hurt the economy. So a bit of planning now, a bit of certainty for the industry now, will pay rich dividends for the economy, but importantly also for Australian workers who've proudly built aviation across the last number of decades.
Okay.